Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, I'm going to go over 5 things that have really surprised me throughout the Scarlet and Violet era when it comes to Pokemon card investing. Hey, before we jump into the video, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. And if you want to become a channel member, that's nice and easy. You can join up from the home screen. When you are a member, you can ask me any investing related questions via email. So nice and easy. Anyway, let's jump into the video. Number 5. This is a bit of a surprising one, and it'll lead into the second point, but in case you didn't notice, in Paradox Rift, Groudon has now overtaken Roaring Moon as the main chase card. To give you an idea on prices on the two cards, Groudon's currently sitting at $51.10, and Roaring Moon's dropped down to $44.78. And I suppose what's really surprising about this is it's another example of an illustration rare being worth more than a special illustration rare. The same thing has happened in Paldea Evolved. And you've got to ask yourself, why is that? Maybe it could be a few reasons. Maybe, and let's be honest, pricing is always driven by demand. Groudon should arguably be easier to pull than the Roaring Moon. Is it Pokemon sentiment? Is it because you've got a Gen 9 versus an older Gen Pokemon that maybe has more nostalgia and popularity around it? Just like the Magikarp from Paldea Evolved versus its special illustration set predecessors? Possibly, and most likely. Like, pricing's all driven, like I said, from demand. So there's every chance that's the reason. It's just funny how that happens when they're easier cards to pull. Illustration rares, and I just did a video on this, roughly have a pull rate of about 1 in 13 to 1 in 16, whereas special illustration rares pull rates are a lot higher. Anyway, that leads me, like I said, straight into point number 2. Now, this is another thing that's really surprised me about the whole Scarlet and Violet era, and that is illustration rare price points. Now, I know I just did a video on this, but in case you haven't watched it, this is probably going to give you a really, really quick synopsis of it. There's some crazy prices for illustration rares. Now, like I said, average about 1 in 13 to 1 in 16 pull rates. And in comparison, if we look back to Sword and Shield era, the trainer gallery cards, just regular trainer gallery cards, and I've used an example in the previous videos, things like Gengar and Charizard from Lost Origin, things like Vaporeon, Flareon, Jolteon from Brilliant Stars, they're about a 1 in 12. So you're very close to having a similar pull rate for a regular trainer gallery versus an illustration rare. But if you look at the price points of illustration rares throughout the Scarlet and Violet era, they're much, much higher. And even more so than that, you get this multiplier effect when some of them get graded with really, really tough grading. If you look at the Scizor from Obsidian Flames, its PSA 10 price is $115. And, it's grading currently under 21% chance of getting a 10. So every 100 submissions to PSA, and, people are picking the eyes out of submissions going, you're not sending off rough cards. You're sending off good examples that you're hoping will get a 10. And, out of every 100 sent, under 21 of them are receiving a 10. Probably the best example of that, or the biggest example, is the Magikarp from Paldea Evolved. Like, a PSA 10 is going for $564. It's massive. And what was that? It was like, 22% chance of receiving a 10. So a touch higher than Scizor, but a more popular Pokemon and maybe more sought after artwork, really pushing the price up there. But it's just crazy how the illustration rare prices work throughout the Scarlet and Violet era. And I think it's going to be good. It's going to mean good things down the track from an investing standpoint, because what it does is it adds so much depth to the chase. It adds so much depth to the set. And I don't know if it's exactly seeded, but it's very close to being seeded. Like, you're almost guaranteed a certain amount of illustration rares out of a booster box. So I think this is going to add weight down the track when it comes to investing in Scarlet and Violet era. The third thing that has really surprised me from the Scarlet and Violet era is Greninja's price point. And I remember, and maybe I spoke a little bit too soon, but I remember looking at Twilight Masquerade just as it was launched, or just as it was about to be launched. Like, we had the full set list. And I said, you know what? This is a pretty solid set, but for me, it's still missing a few things. Like, it's still, a B plus maybe. And then Greninja come out of the gate and just went bang. And, shot up very, very quickly to like a $300 raw card price. It's currently sitting at $271, and it just surprised me because I could tell straight up that artwork was going to be controversial. Some people were going to love it, and personally I do, and some people were going to hate it. In case you don't know who the artist was, it's 5-band graphics. They're the ones that bought us those extremely cheesy-looking artworks throughout the black and white era. That's when it started. I think they've done over 1,600 Pokemon cards now, so it's not exactly like an artist has put in, I suppose, his time and effort to design this card. It's a computer essentially a computer graphics program that's designed it, but it's crazy. It's probably to do with the pull rates. The pull rates for Twilight Masquerade are a lot stricter and harder than what some of the earlier Scarlet and Violet sets were. I think it's about 1 in 800 to 1 in 900, which means it's sort of similar pull rates to something like the Giratina from Lost Origin. So just surprised me though. And the big question is, will it hold on? I mean, is Twilight Masquerade going to cop a big reprint down the track? They're questions no one knows. If it doesn't, obviously it probably will hold on. If it does cop a reprint, then maybe it could affect the price a little bit. We have seen it drop from about 300 US to 271 US in the last couple of months. Will it hold on? Quite possibly. It's just surprising how hot that come out of the gate and the price point that it's commanded. It is still currently the most expensive card from the Scarlet and Violet era. Will something from Surging Sparks knock it off? Possibly. Number 4 on the list that I suppose, and it's a surprise, but it's not really a surprise, but that's just the explosiveness of Scarlet and Violet 151. It just went bonkers, didn't it? Like, we all expected it to go good, but we didn't probably expect it to go that good. It almost brought back some of those COVID vibes where, stock would come into stores and people would just hunt it down and get it out as quickly as they possibly could. Like, it brought so many people, particularly maybe people my age that grew up with Gen 1. It brought so many people back to the hobby. Like, it's crazy. And to give you an example of how well the set's going, some of the singles are, starting to get that uptick in price. That uptick that we get, traditionally around that end of cycle of a set when people are thinking, you know what, this isn't going to get another reprint. And, prices start pushing north due to some upward pressure. Like, if you look at the main chase card from the set, Charizard, it's up 41% in the last 6 months. I think it's sitting, somewhere around 150 to 160 US dollars at the moment as a raw card. So, it's driving up, and there's possibly a couple of reasons for that. When we talk about, 151 and reprints and, has there recently been a reprint and it was bundled into other, bits and pieces that you had to pick up to be able to get, booster bundles, which was a bit of a package. Is that a reprint? Is it a restock? There's lots of, I suppose, commentary around that. But I think people have cottoned on to 151 so much that, whether it is a small reprint or a medium-sized reprint or a small restock or a medium-sized restock, that the market will just absorb the product and absorb that set really, really quickly. And that's what's probably putting the upward pressure on the card prices because, people aren't worried about this set ever just sitting on shelves, even if it were to get another wave, for argument's sake. Because it's still in rotation. There's every chance it could get another wave. But if it were to, I think people have come to terms with the fact that the market will just absorb it super, super quickly, particularly if it's things like booster bundles, elite trainer boxes. Heaven forbid if the Pokemon Center elite trainer box was to get another wave of product. But, that's why I think there's some upward pressure really getting put on these sought-after singles from the set. And the 5th thing that has really surprised me so far from the Scarlet and Violet era is a set like Stella Crown and just its popularity. Like, for a time that's supposed to be quietening off a little bit, and if you haven't realised it, so many of you guys and girls in your industry have probably realised things are a little bit quieter. Now look, there's going to be businesses and sectors that are probably absolutely flying at the moment, but most places are probably feeling that things are a little bit quieter than what they were 12 months ago, especially 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I work in the car industry for Toyota, and it's certainly quieter for us than what it was, even 12 months ago, but particularly 2 or 3 years ago. Things have quietened off a little bit. Real estate, that housing market has quietened off a little bit. I'm sure and that affects lots of industries, the building industry and renovation industry and, tradies and the likes, and that then leads on to other things, insurance companies and, that more white collar work. So there's so many industries, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced things that quietened off a little bit in a lot of sectors. Again, plenty of sectors that are probably absolutely booming and gaining in business and popularity. But it's funny. So to summarize that, for a market that's supposed to be cooling off a little bit, it's really surprising that a set like Stella Crown has been so popular. A lot of people that I've talked to, whether it's shop owners, online business owners, they were just talking about how popular Stella Crown's been. The pre-orders for the boxes, the sales for the boxes, the sheer numbers that are coming out, and people just wanting to crack it open. It's just super surprising because, again, for me, it's a bit of a B or a mid-tier set. The Bulbasaur and Squirtle to match up with the Charmander from the Obsidian Flames Elite Trainer Box promo are beautiful, beautiful illustration rares. And the Terapagos is really surprising. I think this new rainbow border is really, really nice. Obviously it's going to continue on into Surging Sparks. It's so much nicer than having rainbow cards. Thank God they're gone. I can't be the only person that thinks that. Thank God rainbow cards are gone, hey? I'm sure there's plenty of fans of them, but they just weren't really for me. This new rainbow border look is sweet as. It looks so good. That Terapagos, like I was saying, I don't think it's maybe going to hold where it is. I think it's already dropped off. Like I think, it was squirted out the gate at $150 US and it's down to about 110 or 111 US dollars. I don't know. I see it maybe hovering around that sort of 70, 80 US dollar price when all's said and done. But either way, like I just can't believe how popular that set is for something that's not, like not 151 or not the Team Rocket set that's coming. It's going to be interesting to see how Surging Sparks comes out of the gates. I'm sure that's going to be absolutely phenomenal as well. But there's been lots of things throughout this Scarlet and Violet era that have surprised me. It's always good to sit back if something surprised you a little bit, analyze it, take stocks from it and go, you know what, I can sort of add this to the investing mindset and recalibrate things a little bit to focus on, what could produce better results in the future. Hey, I'm still under the assumption that, the better the set, the better the outcome. So far, if I were to summarize this video with the surprises and give you some advice at the end of it, invest in those sets that are popular. Invest in those sets that have big chase cards. That is, so far, Paldea Evolved, Twilight Masquerade, and 151. That's the best we got so far. But around the corner, I've really strongly been saving my money for the sets around the corner because I think we've got really, really good things to come. I can't wait to buy cases of Surging Sparks. I can't wait to buy cases of booster boxes of the Rocket set. That's where I'm going to be parking a lot of my money for the Scarlet and Violet era. Anyway, I'm Michael. This is PokeOz, and I'll catch everyone next time.